ink fans. I thought that today I would share with you some of my thoughts on the question which is quite common and relates to the difference between ballpoint pens and fountain pens in terms of drawing, and I would say calligraphy. So instead of getting into too much detail on the differences between the working mechanisms of ballpoint pens and fountain pens respectively, I thought that for today's video I would simply discuss some of the differences in experience, the drawing or writing experience, and the advantages and disadvantages of ballpoint pens and fountain pens respectively. Now, when using ballpoint pens such as this one in my left hand, it is important to remember that when drawing or writing with a ballpoint pen, the ball is, after all, rolling over the paper. With fountain pens, the tip of the fountain pen is scraping over the paper. Now, you all know that, I'm sure, but the difference comes in terms of how it feels as well. So when you're writing or drawing with a ballpoint pen, it is a smoother experience. In general, of course, it depends entirely on the type of ink as well as the quality of the ballpoint pen, etc., etc. And of course, also the width, the diameter of the ballpoint pen. But the thing to bear in mind is that the resistance of a ballpoint pen tends to be lower if the ink used is the same as the ink that one tends to use in fountain pens. So now the question is, well, doesn't that mean that ballpoint pens are better? And some artists, some illustrators may argue that they are. However, in my experience, the answer is not quite as simple as that. So when drawing with a ballpoint pen, it is a smoother experience, as I said, if the ballpoint pen is using the same type of ink as the fountain pen. But with a fountain pen, one gets a direct type of feedback from the higher resistance. And this is important because with fountain pens, one tends to get more ink, in other words, a thicker line, the longer the tip is kept in one spot on the paper. Right, so if we were to hold it for a long time in one spot, as you can see, you get a thicker dot, whereas with the ballpoint pen, no matter how long you keep it in one spot, you do not get a thicker line. Now, this is an advantage of fountain pens, in my opinion, because when you're drawing, being able to have more ink by simply drawing more slowly, thicker lines by simply writing or drawing more slowly, is a huge advantage to have in a tool, in a drawing tool, because it means that it's more versatile. So the price that one pays for higher resistance, well, slightly higher resistance, I suppose, is the advantage rather of slightly higher resistance with fountain pens is that one gets this added feature, so to speak, of being able to have thick lines and thinner lines depending on not only how quickly or slowly one draws, but also on how much pressure one applies. Now with ballpoint pens, one can get thicker lines by pressing harder and thinner lines by exerting less force. But as mentioned, one does not get the extra ink or the continuous flow of ink in one spot the longer one keeps it in one place, at least not to the extent that one does with fountain pens. There we have another demonstration. Alright, so what do I recommend for inked illustration? Well, the answer is it depends entirely on what type of effect, what type of style, what you prefer. There really is no better or worse when it comes to comparing ballpoint pens and fountain pens. I am a fan of both ballpoint pens as well as fountain pens. I do most of my work using ballpoint pens, and I also use different types of ink in ballpoint pens. Ordinary gel ink is what I've done a lot of my work in the past, but regular fluid type ink is obviously in itself a different medium. However, this video is not aimed at comparing different types of inks. Here we have, well, let me use a different example. Here we have a reasonably good ballpoint pen, but nothing special, using gel ink, with gel ink rather, and well, here we have, of course, very thin lines with light pressure, thicker lines with harder pressure, but nowhere near to the thickness that is obtainable with fountain pens. And of course, with ballpoint pens, you cannot get thicker lines by simply holding the point in one place for a long time. Right, so I hope this comparison has been insightful. These are just some thoughts I had today as relates to the question regarding whether ballpoint pens or fountain pens are better, and what the actual difference is in terms of experience, and why we don't just use one or the other. Fountain pens, as you know, are very commonly used as drawing instruments and continue to be used very commonly, and this perhaps also answers the question as to why that is the case. Despite all the technological advances and technological capabilities we have in terms of manufacturing, well, all different types of pens and ballpoint pens being no exception to that. So anyway, guys, this is my first video for this channel, so please be kind in the comment section, but do feel free to leave any comments or request videos or ask me questions if you're interested in my opinion on these things as an illustrator working mainly in ink. Also, if you would like to see more